Good afternoon from the Shreveport office of Eagle Financial Management Services, LLC, for another edition of the Jack and Bill Show live here on April the 9th of 2021. We were out last week for Good Friday. I think Bill was barbecuing with family, and Stacy and I took a quick trip to the east coast of Florida. The trip was not long enough, and unfortunately, I had to come back. But we had a lot of fun, and then we got back into the office and got some hard work done this week. So we've had intermittent weather all week, probably 5 inches of rain a couple of days ago here in Shreveport. And if you live around here, you need to be careful because I hear rumblings in the background and very dark skies a half hour ago.
Overcast.
Yes, the skies are overcast, but so it's raining around here and some dark clouds over here to the southwest. Hopefully, we will be able to make it to our cars in a half an hour unimpeded and not electrocuted.
All right,
So-
that's it for the weather.
So today, this has been a strong week. You know, we've had this tug of war back and forth, Bill, and then all of a sudden, I think the market decided it just wanted to go higher because we've got, I don't get that. Massive stimulus on the way. We've got the stimmy checks being spent, but it looks like we've got some massive tax hikes on the way, too.
Did you say stimmy check?
Yeah.
For our older audience, would you care to define that term?
Stimmy. I didn't know what that meant at first, Bill. That's really showing my age. But today, the broad market, all across the board, S&P 500 up about almost 0.8% to 4128, breaking through the 4,000 barrier this week. NASDAQ was up about 0.5%. The industrials, Dow Jones Industrials averaged 30 stocks, up about 300 points, just shy of that, up about 0.9%. Smaller caps, Russell 2000 up 48 basis points today. So here we have this thing where, you know, the NASDAQ was kind of leading this week as interest rates kind of settled in and even declined a little bit on the longer end of the Treasury curve. And then today, yields off a little bit today, and the industrials showing through. That's actually, in our opinion, where the best values are in cyclicals, industrials, entertainment, things like that really got whacked with the pandemic. So that's actually, you know, with the close today, Bill, the S&P 500 on a total return basis, that means with dividends reinvested is now up over 10% on the year. Very surprising considering, you know, the news. And even part of this good news is America coming out of the pandemic, economic growth, business openings, restaurant openings, the economy opening up. But in Europe, we've got a different story. We've got COVID cases escalating, deaths escalating, and dire concerns. I think we heard today that Toronto is getting ready to shut down again. So our Canadian neighbor to the north, not doing really well with this COVID stuff. What else? Let's see. So safe havens, the bond market, the 10-year note yield coming down from recent highs around 1.75% to 1.658 today, and the 30-year settling in here at 2.34%. West Texas Intermediate down a little bit today, under $60 a barrel to $59.32 per barrel. That's going to be, you know, I filled up my truck yesterday and it was about $2.75 a gallon. So we've had gasoline prices going up. Getting a little relief today for the summer driving season.
Well, you need
Bill.
a more fuel-efficient truck like mine.
Not sure about that. But, you know, interestingly, we've had supply chain disruptions. We've seen inflation in commodities. we've seen inflation in raw materials. And I've learned something from a few people that I have a 3-year-old pick 'em up truck, and I've heard that I could sell it for $5,000 or $10,000 more than what it's actually worth.
Wow.
Because there's a shortage of trucks, because there's a shortage of chips. And Micron Technology stock benefiting from this, but Ford has really curtailed the production of their F-150 trucks, and they have scheduled closings of their plant to make these things. So here's something, could be because that's the other thing I was reading about, that Egyptian vessel that that thing is still parked. The Egyptians want over $1 billion from the owner of the vessel before that thing moves again. And so one of the things it was carrying was tons of beer. That stuff doesn't stay fresh, really long either.
No,
But
those are short-term effects, and these supply chain disruptions, the shipping vessel, that was stuck in the Middle East. Okay, that can work itself out, but I'm not convinced that the inflation that will be a result of things like supply disruptions and pent-up consumer demand are transitory. I think that we're seeing across the board higher prices on everything.
I would have to agree with you on that, Bill. So, that's the $64,000 question. Are we in a commodity super cycle, or not? Or are bond yields going to keep going higher on the long end because of inflationary concerns, or not?
Well, and we look at CPI. That's the very popular measure of inflation. Well, the CPI, core CPI, doesn't really account well for things that people buy every day. And so when you just look at housing prices nationwide, going up at a sharp clip, gasoline prices at the pump, food. I mean, it seems like everything
things
is
like
going
the
higher.
cost of healthcare.
Healthcare.
There's a huge
yes.
one.
Oh, yeah.
So, yes, let's see. The only thing I didn't mention, gold and silver down today about 0.75%. The yellow metal closing at 1743. That's up on the week, down maybe 7 or 8% year to date. And silver, down about 3%. So, what were we going to talk about today, William?
Well, it has been a busy week this week, and we do have day jobs. We don't have the luxury of spending the whole week planning for our live broadcast. So kind of snuck up on us. I was reading. This is a recent market commentary that our friend Scott Carmack at Holbrook wrote, and I want to spend more time with this, but I wanted to talk about, or was thinking about talking about this, based on something that his analysis about the S&P 500 and earnings and multiple changes and the expected impact on future returns. But you know what? I don't know that our audience is really that interested in that. And it kind of begs the question.
Well, I've got something. When I flew home from Florida last week, I have here in my hand Berkshire Hathaway's 2020 annual report.
All right, I'm going to save our viewers this. If you care to read the Berkshire Hathaway annual report, have at it. It's actually a good read. There's
Very
a lot of wisdom that comes forth, from these annual reports. But I think sometimes we just don't have a whole lot to say, to be honest. And so we have to come up with topics that we think are relevant and of interest to you, our audience. But we would really like to have your feedback. What are you interested in? It may be investor education. It may be maybe it's goals based planning. Like, for example, how to go about saving for a college education or retirement or whatever it is. We really want to hear from you, because we want this show to be not just entertaining. I don't know how entertaining we are really, but we want it to be informative and relevant to you. And we are considering some new formats and maybe some shortened pre-recorded videos and things that you will be able to watch and just be more interested in. So the other thing is that we have a very diverse audience. So we have young viewers, old viewers, inexperienced investors to very experienced investors, and everything in between. So we can have shows that are catered to the first time investors who really need to spend more time on investor education, or we could also get deep in the weeds with our very sophisticated investors. You tell us.
Yes, speaking of that, Bill, on April the 23rd, we're going to have a special guest on. Yes. We want to give you a heads up. Eric Crittenden from Scottsdale, Arizona, and their mutual fund group. They're called Standpoint, and they run the Standpoint Multi-Asset Fund, which is up through yesterday. It was up 26.8%. Since inception. Was the beginning was only 13 or 14 months ago. So
that would be a good show.
That's going to be a really good show on April the 23rd. And we're probably going to try to schedule some managers that we've had on before. Now that one will be highly technical, but we'll try to, explain things in a manner that hopefully people with not such diverse financial understanding can get. So what else, William?
That's it for me, unless you want to read the Berkshire Hathaway annual report.
No, I would point that out, because I read this. This is the one that I look forward to getting every year. It's written by the chairman, Warren Buffett, who's now, I don't know, I think he's 90 or 91. Something like that. One of the brightest minds. The Berkshire Hathaway's performance versus the S&P 500. This thing began in 1965, and the per share market value of Berkshire Hathaway has compounded at 20% per year.
It's amazing.
It's gone up 2,810,526%. over that time frame, doubling the return of the S&P 500 compounded annual gain of 10.2%. But it's a humorous read. He's very good about paying attention to costs in investing, making very few. One of the things that Buffett has said, that if you had a card with 20 punch holes in it, he's the kind of guy that you only punch it 20 times in your lifetime with your investments. I have clients that probably trade 20 times a week, but imagine that. If you thought of a business or a company that you bought for the long term, just like imagine someone who calls us on a day when the market's down 3%, asking us if we should sell. And I usually ask them a question at the same time. Should you sell your house today, do you think?
Fair question.
Fair question. But
we don't see many Warren Buffetts these days. I mean, these days,
no, we don't.
In this instant gratification society that we live in, people rent stocks. They don't own stocks. Warren approaches investing in
Correct.
stocks as being an owner in the company. and his holding period is very long. He's very patient, and it's worked for him.
But he runs a very diversified conglomerate that's actually done very well. Now, it's not going to be able to compound in the future like it has in the early years because there's too many people in our business trying to figure out ways to make money. But they have everywhere from jewelry to, I think, the best chocolate candies in the world, to they're now 15% of all freight from their Burlington Northern acquisition. Then their insurance business is quite enormous, and then marketable securities, which they own. And he comments that they also have a big position in Kraft Heinz, ketchup. But Apple is the largest security that they own, alongside of Merck, General Motors, Coca-Cola, Chevron, Bank America, American Express, things like that. So, but again, it's a very interesting and educational read with a lot of advice. They acquired Clayton Homes, mobile home company. That's gone really well, for him. Anyway, that was a very interesting read flying home the other day.
Well, I was just thinking, because, this man is very old, and when he passes, he will leave a huge void. Their annual meetings, it's like Mecca, for investors, and investors will flock, to the Berkshire Hathaway annual meetings just to hear a few words from Warren. And, I'm almost, getting a little, reminiscing a little bit, but, as we lose these old guys, these old wise guys, actually I shouldn't say old wise guy, but old guys who are very wise, who've been doing this for a long time, we do need to take to heart, the lessons that they learned over lifetimes of investing, because that is something that, gosh, we can't easily replace.
No, and these shares, the B shares, were going to cross at $265 a share today, and the stock only went up about 4% last year, making you kind of wonder. Actually, in 2020, it went up 2.4%. Does not pay a dividend. So it's starting to get a little attention this year because he recently announced that they rarely buy back shares of their own company. So that really enhances. He talks a lot about that. Companies that buy back, their own stock. And you really only want to do that if your company's share price is cheap enough, and warrants doing that. But it really helps your earnings numbers and earnings per share growth numbers on a long-term basis if you take advantage of that. So they've been doing that. And although in contrast to Bill, think of in corporate America, CEOs, most CEOs are compensated on a short-term basis. Their employment contracts contain short-dated options, which are levered on short-term performance. So a CEO is going to want to spend everything they can on the stock to drive the price higher, to make their compensation package higher in a lot of the cases.
So that also means that they're taking advantage of very low interest rates to borrow more, and then use the proceeds from the borrowings to buy back stock, instead of using borrowed money to put into the business, to grow the business. So it's a financial engineering technique that they're doing, and that's the opposite of what Warren has been doing over the years.
Yeah, and one thing, so in closing, I'd like to just mention one thing, because about here we are, the stock market is up about 10%. and it's not something to be taken for granted. That's actually the return that you get on a historical basis out of a whole year.
Yeah.
So we've hit the 10% number. This is an outstanding time. Just finished, the first quarter. We like to do quarterly rebalancing, or rebalancing, I would say, is better done as necessary as you have, changing prices with the different asset classes or the different types of buckets of securities that you own, if you will. So, but we think this is an investment climate where you want to be exceptionally diversified, rebalancing frequently, and we're kicking the tires on things and looking everywhere, to find value. But we're finding more value now in deeply discounted closed-end funds, value stocks instead of growth stocks, cyclical stocks, financials, industrials. Industrials have been beating the other, markets this year, the S&P 500 and the NASDAQ on a year-to-date basis. Not so crazy about technology, but the technology stocks, we said last week, are going to be more dependent upon what interest rates do. Interest rates come down, they're going to take off again. If long-dated bond yields keep rising, we're going to see tech coming under pressure. So we've got the Masters in action here. I think that's the probably the most important golf tournament in the world every year. Justin Rose shot his best Masters round ever, Bill, yesterday, a 65, par 72. So he was -7. He had a 4-stroke lead, and he's a guy that can get the job done. I'd rather see some of his American counterparts come away with the trophy. But anyway, we've got the Masters going on. We've got FCS football going on this weekend, about to start the playoffs. Basketball's over with. Baylor surprising everybody with Bill's alma mater, Baylor, winning the men's national championship as an underdog against, Gonzaga. I thought they were more athletic. It was an exciting game. They started out scoring the first 9 points of the game, and then Gonzaga really never recovered. Well, we're just kind of rambling, and we're going to try to beat the rains here and the thunderstorms. And we thank you for watching. Please write in if you have any questions or comments.
Give us your feedback.
Something,
hear it.
Yeah, something you'd like to cover. And that's about it, William.
All right, guys, gals, have a great weekend.